Hi there, I'm Randy Patterson, and this is Psychology Salon, a channel about psychological issues. If you like this kind of thing, click subscribe. With this video, I'm starting a series of 5 on how we govern the decisions that we make in life. Some of the circumstances of our existence are the result of external factors, the economy, the place where we live, the actions of the people around us. But much of what happens in our life is the result of the decisions we make about what to do. You probably think of yourself as a complete being, just as I do. You have thoughts, you have feelings, you have physical sensations, but these are all connected in some way to our actions, our behavior. When some psychologists of the 1950s and beyond looked at people, they said, well, we can't see how you feel or how you think. All we can see, all anyone can see, is what you do, your behavior. So that's all we're going to pay attention to. And we called that stance behaviorism. Most psychologists and most therapists go beyond that now. If we want to know how you feel or what you're thinking, you know what? We can ask. Maybe you'll lie, but most of the time it'll give us some idea. But every action you take is the result of a decision of some kind, from scratching your nose to picking from a menu to the coat you put on in the morning to the person you marry to how you spend your evenings to the career and friends and home you choose. And how do you make those decisions? What's your compass? What's your guide? I believe that there are 5 primary guides that we use, 5 compasses, if you like. And you might object and say that there are more, fine. To some extent, it depends on how we divide them up. For our purposes, let's think of them as 5. So what's the first one? Impulse. This is the guidance provided by our feelings and our moment-to-moment motivation. What am I drawn to right now? Back in the 1950s, the emphasis in much of Western society was put on another of those compasses that I'll talk about in the next video: expectations. The ideas about acceptable behavior and how you're supposed to live your life were quite tight, quite confining. Here's what you do at 20. Here's how you behave with the neighbors. Here's what's important in life. This created a kind of imbalance, and in the 1960s, many young people rebelled against it. To hell with what society demands, with what our parents expect, with what so-called normal people are supposed to do. Let's toss that compass into the garbage. But you know, we have to base our actions on something. So what do we do instead? There was a great emphasis on tuning into your feelings and letting them be your guide. If it feels good, do it. Honor your feelings. Let your emotions be your guide. Live by your instincts. Trust your feelings. So to do this, you would tune in to what you were feeling and sense the impulses that were there. And you'd use that to make your decisions for you. If you feel like going outside, go outside. You want to swim? Go swimming. The job doesn't feel right? Quit. The relationship is a problem? End it. You're uncomfortable around other people? Listen, you're a loner. Spend your life apart as much as you can. And the rationale for this is actually pretty good. The emotions are a behavioral guidance system. That's what they're for. They're designed to move you toward what you want and keep you safe from danger. So why wouldn't they be the best compass to use? Well, the answer to that question is because they evolved in primitive pre-modern conditions that bear almost no resemblance to the life you live today. Out in the wild, if something scares you, there's a good chance it's potentially lethal. Run away from it and hide from it, or attack and kill it. That's what the stress response is for: fight or flight, kill it or run away from it. And it's still wired into us. But today, if you start hitting anyone who irritates you, things aren't going to go well. And if you avoid anything that makes you fearful, your fear is only going to get stronger. Take anxiety problems, for example. Let's say a dog bites you. Naturally, this causes some fear of that particular dog, and this can generalize to other dogs that look similar. When you see these dogs, you'll experience a natural, evolved impulse to get away from them. And when you give in to that impulse, you'll feel better. But the next time you see those dogs, you'll likely be even more fearful. This is how phobias develop. Fears of dogs, of heights, of crowds, of job interviews, of being outside your home, of public speaking, of driving, of shopping malls, and even of your own physical sensations. Panic disorder, for example, is mostly a fear of the physical sensations of panic. And that fear, unfortunately, tends to bring on those symptoms. During depression, the impulse is almost always to withdraw, isolate, and shut down, become less active, and disengage from your life. And we know that this almost always makes depression worse in the long run. But our impulses can also lead us into trouble when we're moving forward, not just retreating. We experience the impulse to look at one more YouTube video until 3 hours have passed, which is, let's face it, exactly what YouTube is designed to do. Capture your eyes and then show you ads. That's the business model. You experience the impulse to smoke one more joint, order one more beer, spend one more hour in the casino, have sex with one more person, yell at your friends, humiliate your partner, drive when you're drunk, and steal that necklace. There's also a problem in the case of anhedonia when the impulse compass seems to vanish altogether. Nothing seems appealing. Nothing is interesting. Nothing has any draw. So if you're basing much of your life on the impulse compass, you're really lost. Most of us can identify some of our impulses that function well. The compass works. We sense, maybe that rock face is beyond my abilities. And guess what? It is. We think, I want to see that movie. And in fact, we do enjoy it. We feel interested in that area of knowledge, and studying it does pay off. We sense that a friend wants to tell us something, and it turns out they do. Wonderful. This is where we can trust our impulses. We can put them in the driver's seat and trust that they will lead us where we want to go. But all of us, and I do mean all of us, also have impulses that lead us in the wrong direction. We have that fifth beer and regret it in the morning. We get involved with that new person, and once again, it turns out to be a bad idea. We get hostile with our loved ones, and our relationships suffer. We turn down opportunities out of fear and wind up with a narrow, restricted life. We're convinced we can win back those gambling losses, and we only lose more money. We spend another hour surfing the web, and we look up to see that the sun has gone down and the day has been wasted. We stay at home, stay at home, stay at home, and then we feel bored and dissatisfied with our life. Impulse is often a lousy guide, possibly more often than not. Happiness does not lie at the end of our impulses. Often it sits waiting for us to overcome our impulses instead. Here's the cheapest and easiest way to think of a human brain. Put your thumb in, wrap your fingers around it. This is the prefrontal cortex. My thumb here is the primitive old brain that we share with most animals, if you like, back up here. Our emotions and our impulses typically come from here. The prefrontal cortex, just above your eyes, has connections with that primitive reptilian brain. And its main function is to override impulses. If your prefrontal cortex has a slogan, it's, I feel like it, but I'm not going to. I do want to run away and hide at home. but that's not a good idea, so I'm not going to do it. I do want to hit the boss in the nose, but that's not going to happen. I would love to order another scotch, but I have things to do tomorrow. The prefrontal cortex looks into the future and projects what will happen if we go along with our impulses. And it realizes that although some of our impulses are good, many of them just lead to disaster. If your primitive brain is an overexcited dog, your prefrontal cortex is the leash. Okay, you want to try applying this to your own life? Take out a pen and paper and list all the things that tend to appeal to you over a couple of days. Let's look at YouTube some more. Let's check the news for the 10th time today. Let's snipe at somebody online. Let's go for ice cream. Let's pat that dog. Let's skip out of work, whatever. And beside each one, make a note of whether this really paid off for you, or whether you believe it would have been a really good idea to do. Afterwards, if you did it, were you happy you did it? I'm glad I saw that show. I liked hanging out with those people. I felt good playing with the dog. I kind of regretted smoking that much pot. I stayed home, but I felt worse at the end of the day. I didn't study, and I only got more anxious about the exam. Look for items that really felt tempting beforehand and seemed dissatisfying afterwards, or that led to regret. These might be some impulses that are not serving you. Maybe you need to find another way to make some of those decisions. You need another compass. So if the main function of the prefrontal cortex is to say no, what do we do instead? How else can we govern our decisions and our lives? Well, that is the function of our other compasses. And in coming videos, I'll talk about each of them. There are other videos on this channel on the psychology of everyday life. Click the subscribe button for more. I also have an online course site, psychologysalon.teachable.com, with programs for professionals and for the general public. And my books, How to Be Miserable, 40 Strategies You Already Use, How to Be Miserable in Your 20s, and The Assertiveness Workbook are available from online booksellers. Thanks for watching.